everybody. Welcome to the Underwater Photography Show. I'm Matthew Sullivan.
And I'm Alex Mustard.
And today we're going to talk a little bit about Alex's trip to Switzerland, of all places, to do some underwater photography.
Yeah, landlocked country, famous for diving.
And how the fact that they did a whole underwater competition and event, and there's no life. It's all rocks and sunbeams and water.
Yeah.
So I'll let you explain a little bit about what the event was, and then I'll pepper you with questions here and there when I have them.
Yep. So I think I'll start with the destination. And there's a river on the southern side of the Swiss Alps, which drains down into Italy, called the Verzasca River. And it's a beautiful Alpine river. And it's been known for a long time having very clear water. And I've seen photos from this river throughout all my underwater photography career. They're not very common, but certainly in Europe, there were a certain number of European photographers, and particularly I can think of three very well-known Swiss photographers, Kurt Amsler, Mirko Zanni, and Franco Banfi. And the three of them had always had these amazing, clear, stunning, beautiful, clear water photos taken in a river somewhere in the Alps. And it always intrigued me, and I'd always wanted to go there. And it was really, I always felt impossible to organise because there's not any dive centres there. It's very much, you have to turn up with your own gear, and it's in the middle of Switzerland, and, I don't even know where or anything about it. So I never thought I was going to get the chance to go there, just always seen the photos and dreamed about it. And then a friend of mine, who, anyone who gets the chance to become a friend of him should do, is a very genial, is a great word for him, Swiss photographer called Fritz Lichty. And he's actually, like you, he's a dedicated user and promoter of photographing with an external monitor. Yes. That's he's a lover. Anyway, Fritz is also, he's represented Switzerland many times in international photography competitions and knows lots of the photographers that do these international competitions. And actually, at the time we're recording this, the CMAS World Championship of Underwater Photography is taking place in Spain. And this event was organised about a month before that, in order for people to have as a training event for that, so people can get back into the zone of doing competitive underwater photography. And anyway, Fritz is just the nicest guy, and he basically invited the photographers who he likes to this event, and me, to and it was sort of staffed by his family and friends, and it was just the best gathering of people in a fantastic location, with the aim of diving in this river and photographing it and having a competition too. But the competition was just really to give it a focus. The competition was sort of held to these, what I always call photo sub, spelled with an F, because it's so popular in Europe and that's how they refer to it. But it's kind of the international underwater photography rules that CMAS promotes. And CMAS is actually linked with the Olympic movement. So they have to run competitions with very strict rules of fair play. And although they seem a bit artificial to us, if you actually sat down and say, how could we make the competition fair, you'd end up back at the same place they are. And basically the rules are, you get a specific time to take photos. You have to take a control picture at the beginning of that time to prove you haven't got any pictures on your card before that time. You're then free to go and do your dive for a certain amount of time. And then at the end of the dive, you have to take a control picture of the judges again, who are waiting at the side of the river. They then take your camera away with them, and they download your memory card onto their control computer, and then they give it back to you. And you're only allowed to enter pictures direct from the camera that are on their computer. And you have to shoot everything as JPEG. So there's no setting the white balance afterwards. There's no, I just want to make a small crop to that afterwards. There's no, no adjustments in Photoshop or backscatter removal or anything like that. It's very much pictures straight out of the camera that are judged. So you then get your pictures, download them on your computer, look through them, choose your favorites and say, I want to enter number 3, number 8 and number 12 as my pictures for the competition, please. So that's kind of how the competition side of it works.
Are you allowed to personally still shoot in like JPEG plus RAW, so you have the RAW files, or were you only allowed to shoot? Okay.
Yeah, so I basically set my camera up to write RAWs to one folder and JPEGs to the other. Now, the first thing I'd say is do not use a Sony camera for these competitions, because the Nikon cameras and the Canon cameras allow you to do things like double exposures. They allow you to do a lot of post-shooting editing. So you can crop pictures, you can convert a picture to black and white, you can after shooting, you can do all these things and make a new JPEG file. And in these competitions, as long as you do that in the water, you're allowed to do that. Now, actually, in this competition, you weren't allowed to crop your wide angle pictures, so I wasn't in too much of a disadvantage in the two main wide angle categories. But in the creative category, you could do any of these in camera trickery that your camera allowed. Annoyingly for me, my Sony doesn't allow any of that in camera trickery that the other cameras do. So I was the only person shooting Sony on the shoot, because the other cameras, and a lot of the photographers, they use their crop sensor mode and things like that to get different pictures on the same dive, and that sort of thing. They'll do double exposures, which is very common to allow them to do creative stuff. And image overlaying is also allowed as long as it's done in the competition window dive time. So you have to stop shooting to if you want to do your image overlaying for a few seconds or whatever. And that's the way they maintain the level playing field. It's also important that you set your camera up well so that your white balance is absolutely correct. And I think that's a big challenge for a lot of people who are new to this. And also that your JPEG settings are making the files look as good as possible. And I think those things, for someone new to it, can be quite alien, because you're like, well, I know given 1 second in Lightroom, I could get this picture looking right, but I'm not allowed that 1 second. So you have to try to get those things right. And the experienced photographers already have really good profiles entered into their camera to output those files. But I think, if you were trying to make a level playing field, this would be the way to do it. For me, I went there not with a big eye on the competition. I'd always wanted to shoot in this river. And also all the teams were photographers and models. So people all traveled there with their own dedicated models who are used to posing and used to working with the photographers to create the images. And actually, many of them are very talented and are very good at spotting good photo opportunities. But I was buddied up with a local diver, who was a big burly Swiss guy called Klaus. But he actually knew the river really well. So I had although my model wasn't, there was, you'll see in the video at the end of this that we'll run, that some of the models are very glamorous and they are amazing at posing. And some of the shots that the photographers produced with the models were wonderfully creative, incredibly beautiful. And my shots are, very much diver shots. But, it wasn't just about model photography, and actually having someone who had that expert local knowledge was actually a big help for me. And also, some of the models in their thin suits got quite cold in the river quite quickly. Klaus was happy to dive all day, so I was actually able to get a huge amount done. And so, so there were some disadvantages of diving with him in that he didn't look as nice as some of the girls, and I think he'd admit that himself. But at the same time, I had a huge advantage that I had some real local knowledge and the ability to work really hardcore in the cold water. I didn't wear a dry suit myself. I actually wore my freediving suit, but I was plenty warm enough in that because it's such a warm suit.
So we haven't, maybe you were going to touch on it, but before, just so we don't skip over it, how was the competition set up? Because congratulations, I saw you won.
It wasn't. Yes, yeah, I'll talk about that, I guess. Yeah.
Figure out how they had it set up, and if it was like a portfolio thing and then an individual category thing, or how that worked.
So the way that these Photoshop competitions normally run is they normally have 4 or 5 categories that you have to shoot for. And the overall winner is the person who scores highest across all the different categories.
Okay.
And the aim of that is it means that if someone isn't so good, but they can just focus on one category, do the best shot they possibly can in that one category, and then they might do one in that one category, but not overall. Whereas if you're a good photographer, what you realize is it's important to score in all the categories because it's your total points that makes you the winner. And Carlos Miguel, who was world champion many times in these formats, told me all about how he was successful by always making sure that he worked on all the categories at the same time and not focusing too much on one. And I followed his advice from many years ago.
For example, if you came in second in all 5 categories, that's more beneficial than coming in first in a category.
Yes. Yeah. I don't actually know what the points scoring was, but yeah, that said, I spent a lot of my dive time actually just shooting for myself, but I made sure that I had shots that would work in the competition. And I think that I was also helped on the competition front because the judges, which actually included 2 of the photographers I named at the beginning, Mirko and Franco, I think they were probably looking more for pictures that represented the destination than they were for the super creative contest
Yes.
type shots. So that probably played to my favor a little bit, in that what I wanted to do for myself fitted rather well with probably what the judges were looking for, which was a celebration of the thing rather than a really creative shot that, to be honest, could have been taken anywhere.
Yeah.
And I think also all the photographers took this as not the most important contest they ever entered in their life. It was very much the experience of being there. And certainly I was not, if I'd come last, I would have been just as happy as if I won. But I did win, and I'd actually won a trip to Truck Lagoon,
Oh.
which is an amazing prize to win, which my intention is to give it. Actually, I'm going to donate it to Klaus, because
Oh, that's
I'm
cool.
not in a position to go. And to be honest, he's in two of my winning pictures, and he helped me get in position for the third one. So, I
Yeah.
mean, he was as much to blame. But I haven't had the chance to confirm the details of that yet, just because I've been away. Because I pretty much went straight to Canada after that trip. It was. I think, yeah, I was fortunate that I've known it. Although I'd never competed in one of these competitions before, I've judged the CMAS World Championships twice, and also so I understand how the contests work. And I've always been interested in photo substyle contests. So I've spoken to many of the successful people who've done them. And as a result, kind of knew enough about all the tricks to be able to make sure my JPEGs look presentable. And at the same, and I'm technically quite a good photographer. And I think I also benefited because, unlike a lot of the contest photographers who dive a lot around the Mediterranean and the Canary Islands and places where these type of contests are very popular, I dive all around the world. So when we all got thrown into a very alien situation, I was much better placed to make good decisions quickly than perhaps some photographers who just never experienced anything like that before. I'd never really dived in rivers much before like this, but I've dived in cenotes, I've photographed in Silphra, and both of those are a lot of similarities
Yeah.
to shooting in the river. So I think I was well placed. I had a lot of parallel experience that I could draw on, which put me in a good position. So, and then I think I was quite lucky that the judges were probably looking for pictures that were more in line with what I was trying to do than perhaps some of the other competitors who were training more for the forthcoming World Championships. But it was a high quality field. I mean, I think over half the field had been world champions. So it
Yeah.
wasn't like it was a beginner's thing. So I was very
Yeah.
happy to have won. But honestly, and it's not false modesty, different judges or different day or judges looking for something different, and I wouldn't have won. I was made a very respectable entry. I had nice pictures, but everyone had nice pictures, and it could have easily been shuffled out a different way on a different day. But I loved the whole experience so much.
Well, that's one thing I was going to touch on is I think that one of the things that people always come away from these shootout style competitions saying is that the experience was the best part of it, whether they won something or not. The whole
Mm.
experience of being with a bunch of other like-minded people, you get to hang out with all of them, talk to all of them, meet new people, and hopefully it's happening in a cool place.
Mm.
That's one like when people always do the Monterey Shootout in California every year. Everybody says it's the experience of the entire thing more than
Yeah.
necessarily winning. That is the best part of those that style of competition.
Yeah, and I'd fully agree with that, despite
Yeah,
having won the top prize. I'd also say one of the nice things about having this JPEG only rule is normally on a dive trip you shoot, and then because everyone's got raw files, they're all like there on the computer like all evening adjusting everything. The great thing about shooting JPEGs is there's no post processing. You can't do any, so you basically do your dive, and then you're like, well, that's it then. We're all free now to socialize because so it's
yeah,
actually quite nice from a social point of view. Um, the other thing I wanted to talk about before we play Mateus's video of the event, which I think will give people a flavour to finish on, is talk a little bit about some of the things I learned about river photography, and particularly this Alpine river. Is the river is it's very beautiful because it's all about different rock formations, and it's a clear water that's cut down through rocks because it's so fast flowing. There's very little sediment, so it's all just bare rock surfaces. And the thing it's probably most sort of similar to is like photographing in Antelope Canyon in Utah, or wherever it is. But is that classic land canyon photography
yeah,
of just rock formations and light and everything, but doing that underwater and maybe having a diver floating in the background. And that was really interesting, finding the compositions, looking for the structure, using the light. I thought was a really interesting challenge. Um, the other things that were interesting is you when you do that sort of photography, visibility is everything. And we didn't have amazing visibility during the event because annoyingly, just before the event, there'd been quite a lot of rainfall, and rainfall is everything there. You don't have to worry about tides. You don't have to worry, about wind or things that we'd be concerned about when we go diving. But you have to watch the rivers flow. Firstly, from a safety point of view, is that because this is a mountain river, a small amount of rainfall can very quickly change the water level. And actually, a lot of people die swimming in this river, particularly every year, but also diving in it. It's a very dangerous place because people don't pay attention to those things. And it was impressed on us how there was a diving safety thing, and if the diving was suddenly cancelled or even in the middle of a dive, we had to be out the water very quickly. And because the water level can rise in a matter of 5 minutes from
Yeah.
being completely placid to being really dangerous very quickly. So you have to be very aware of that, and the weather forecast is everything, and to pay attention to that. They have a flow meter on the river, and actually, so they use that to know where the diving is, so they can accurately measure the flow of the river. And basically, whenever it felt below 6 cubic meters per second of flow, that meant that we could dive in different spots. But actually, initially, the competition was planned to be on 3 different spots on the river. And because the flow never dropped low enough, one of the spots was never used. So the different spots become available at different flow speeds, which is quite interesting. I would say that if I was so those things were interesting. I think if I was visiting there, the most reliable period for low flow is the middle of summer and the middle of winter, when there's little
Yeah.
rainfall or the rain is all basically staying frozen on the mountain tops as snow. Um, but the summer, the problem of going there is that the main bridge over the river is this amazing looking. It's called the Roman Bridge, but it's actually medieval bridge, I think. And it's this stone narrow bridge without railings. It looks straight out of Star Wars because it's like this really high bridge over the river with no just little buttresses on either side that come up to about your ankle, and it's this double sort of bridge, very beautiful bridge over the river, but it's become a real Instagram selfie spot.
Yeah.
So this place that used to be a quiet little valley running up into the mountains in Switzerland has actually become a real tourist hotspot. And it's only an hour and a half away from the big city of Milan. So a lot of people from northern Italy and Switzerland as well, and from other places, come there all the time. So it's really too busy in the summer to be enjoyable for diving. And the water gets quite warm there in the summer, so people swim in the river.
Yeah.
The autumn, it starts to get too cold to swim the river, and it cools down really quickly because the water's so fast flowing
Yeah.
that it's the temperature changes really fast, and it changed a lot during our stay. It was 2 degrees colder one day than the previous day, and a week before it had been 8 degrees warmer. It was
Yeah.
that's how quickly it changes at that time of year. Anyway, so the window we went was pretty good, but you need to pay attention, and that makes it quite hard to visit and dive. So I would say that I will go back there, but I probably won't ever go back there to dive unless it's for an event like this. But I would say I could get probably 50% of the shots I did. I could have got snorkeling. And
Mm.
I think going there with just my free diving suit and a fisheye lens and no strobes, I would probably be able to get about half the shots anyway. And for a visit, that would probably work really well. And snorkeling and free diving there, I think you'd be a lot able to dive in bigger currents because you're more streamlined and without strobes and everything, and it would make it actually safer. Rather
Yeah.
than going on a dive, you'd see if the water level suddenly changed and that sort of thing. So yeah, that would be my advice if anyone wanted to go there. Is go there with the intention of snorkeling. Have a look. They've got a webcam on the river so you can see what the flow is like. They've got the flow meter so you can see if you're in a period of high flow or normal low flow or that sort of thing. And those things can really help you. And if you're really into diving there, I would reach out to that Swiss underwater photography and diving community and get some local advice about going there. I'm so happy I had the chance to dive there. It was something completely unique in my diving career and photography career. And I really enjoyed the whole event and the chance to learn things from all these competition photographers because there's no doubt that the model photography that they do in these events and some of the creative in camera tricks that they know is the very best stuff in underwater photography in those genres. And it was really, really fun to spend time with them.
Well, so I think that's a good place to wrap up, and then we can toss in. Would you say his name is Matthias?
Yes. Matthias Lebo made the video of the event. Very nicely produced video, and he said we could run it on the channel, so we'll run that now. Matthias also has a really great YouTube channel that's everything about underwater video. So all the stuff we never talk about,
Yeah,
he talks about. So I'll put a link to his channel as well underneath the video, and people can find out a bit more about the event, see the personalities and the fun that we had out in Switzerland, and see why these events are a lot of fun to get involved in. Even if you're not all about the success, actually that chance to be involved in a shootout is a fantastic thing.
Yeah. So with that, please enjoy Matthias, his video, and we will see you guys next time on the Underwater Photography Show.
I'm enjoying a lot because this is a group of friends, and that's the most important in all this competition, and especially this one.
Everything around this competition is highlight for me. The good company, diving, food, a lot of fun with all friends, friendly atmosphere, everything around this competition.
In Verzasca sono venuto perché Fritz è un mio amico, mi ha chiesto di venire e ho fatto di tutto per poterci essere.
It's been a fantastic privilege to come here to Verzasca and to photograph in these amazing waters. It's quite a challenging place for photography. The water's cold, the water is moving a lot, as you can see. And still photography is often about staying still. But if you can survive and thrive in those conditions, then the rewards are really rich. There's scenery here like nowhere else underwater, and any place that offers something fresh for an underwater photographer is always going to be a favorite.
Diving. Diving was very good. It surprised me how beautiful it is on the water. The stones and the lines and everything. It's quite good.
My highlight of this competition will be to survive all the dives in this hot water.
I think the most challenging thing about taking pictures here in this very nice river is actually getting in and out, because once you're in, it's just the most beautiful water. The scenery underwater is very beautiful, so it's actually just getting comfortable, getting in and out, and carrying all the equipment down to the water.
We are a not so big family photographers underwater. And we see us every time as each other competition, and we are friendly together, and it's like we meet friends again every time, and there's a good passion for our sport.
We have so many different landscapes that we are not used to, and to work with these beautiful stones and their beautiful textures, it's really great.
There's such a pool of talent here that I can spend a couple days just watching these people work. This is a little different type of photography from what I've used to, And one of the nice things about photography is there's always something new to learn. You never know anything, never know everything.
Only what I don't like here in this competition, it's one guy, Jos, you know, this guy from Netherlands. I don't love this guy. This guy, it's so, okay, coming.
I never come again. My big friend. Huh?
This guy. You see in my face, I don't love this guy.